Yo, what's good? This video is the second part of a series in which I speedrun Bloxfruits. I try to get through the game as fast as I can and document how long it took me to get to certain places and things. I use the word speedrun, but this video is not meant to be taken too seriously. I didn't really do any prior research to make sure I play the game as fast as humanly possible. It's just how long it takes me to do it. So if you're watching the video and you cringe because I'm playing the game very suboptimal, I'm sorry, it's just me being silly and not knowing any better. But don't worry, I'm only wasting my time and I'm condensing way too many hours of my life into a short video, so you'll be aight. I want to say a quick thank you for the massive support on my last video. It's insane. I went from barely having 400 subscribers to jumping all the way to 650 as of recording this. Thank you so much. But anyways, before we get into the video, let's quickly recap the rules for this speedrun. Number 1, I can't receive any help from friends. They can't help me grind. They can't help me kill bosses, give me fruits, etc. Number 2, no trading. I can only get a fruit from finding it or buying it myself. And number 3, no spending Robux. This run is completely free to play. My goal for this video is to finish the second sea, or in terms of levels, reach level 1500. Let's see how long it takes me. Jumping off where we left on the last video, the beginning of the second sea was pretty slow. I had to grind raiders, which were pretty far from the quest giver, but they did spawn in groups of 4. Sadly, nearly every enemy in the second sea has an ability they can use which makes them more annoying to grind. It can be them throwing a projectile or doing some random AoE attack. It's really annoying. It took me about 30 minutes to finish the raiders and I went on to the mercenaries. They were close to the quest giver and a bit more compact, which was nice. By the way, I got a lot of comments on my last video recommending I use a saber for grinding, so I worked on my saber mastery and tried it out. But although the base damage was good, I don't necessarily see how the saber is much better than the Bicento for grinding. The first ability has a lot of potential to do good damage, but it was really rare that I actually did it. Maybe when people recommended me saber, they were thinking of saber v2, but I don't know. Personally, right now, I'd rather use the Bicento because its abilities cover way more AoE. If I'm being stupid, my fault. I powered through the mercenaries in about 50 minutes and went to the Swan Pirates. The Swan Pirates were pretty good. 6 of them spawned relatively close to each other and the XP was solid. I used an XP code to speed the process up, and in the 20 minutes I had it, I went from level 775 to 836. A solid 61 levels. The next enemies after the pirates were the scientists, but they were really spaced apart and far from the quest givers, so I stayed with the Swan Pirates from level 775 all the way to 875. I grinded the same enemies for 100 levels. I got impatient and used another XP code to get out of the Swamp Pirates and I was off to the Green Zone. Green Zone was chill. The first set of enemies spawned kinda awkwardly, but at least they didn't have some super annoying ability that made them a pain to grind. I hit level 900 after nearly 2.5 hours of grinding the second sea. It was around this time I decided, since I'm doing sword, I think I want to try to get some of the legendary sword dealer weapons. Just for fun. For those unfamiliar, around every 4 hours or so, a random NPC spawns around the world in a few locations for 15 minutes and sells one of 3 legendary swords. The only way to check how close the NPC is to spawning is by talking to an NPC called the manager. However, to even gain the ability to speak to him, you gotta do a quest line by another NPC called Bartomello, I think. I talked to my homie Bartomello and he told me to do some random tasks like kill 50 swamp pirates and then kill a boss named Jeremy, and he sent me to the Coliseum where I solved a puzzle and freed some NPCs. Completing this gave me the ability to talk to the manager and also gave me an item called the Swordsman Helmet, which boosts my sword damage, so I'm a rocket for a bit. By the way, I never clarified this in my last video, but these runs are not all done in one sitting. I should have prefaced this in my last video, my fault, but I do have the ability to pause the timer and take a break from the game. But anyways, 12 hours into the run, something insane happened when I visited the Bloxfruit dealers. I got the light fruit. Thank God. I know a lot of people recommended me to get Buddha for grinding, but I wanted to commit to sword this run, so I think the next best fruit would be the one that gives me the literal fastest traveling in the game. Having this fruit makes life so much more convenient. I'm way faster than I was with that stupid ass flame through. Anyways, another big revelation came around this time. I found out a friend of mine had a private server for Bloxfruits. So this might be kind of cheesy considering private servers cost Robux, and this is kinda indirect help from a friend. But I seriously don't think me occasionally getting killed by some random max level player is adding anything valuable to this video, so I'ma do it. I joined the private server and finished Green Zone by 12 hours and 50 minutes. After Green Zone was the graveyard, and it was pretty good. 6 zombies spawned super compact and it gave good XP. Unfortunately, the second set of enemies, the vampires, were not worth at all. They had an annoying ability, were way more spaced apart, and further from the quest giver. The graveyard only took about 30 minutes thanks to an XP code and I was off to the next area. I don't know the name of it, so the winner place. This place was alright. The first set of enemies didn't have super annoying abilities and spawned close together. The second group of enemies unfortunately had some super stupid ability which stunned me in place, which made them really hard to farm, but overall, it wasn't too horrible. This place took me about an hour to finish up and I headed out to Punk Hazard, or Hot and Cold. I don't know why in specific, but this part of the game was easily the most boring. Punk Hazard had 4 different sets of enemies in total and none of them were fun to grind. All of them were spaced awkwardly, so it's rarely worth to group them and kill them with abilities, so it just became me killing them one by one as fast as possible. I'm not going to talk about hot and cold much because I was bored out of my mind at this point in the game, but for a quick summary, the first set of enemies took about 20 minutes, the second set about another 20, the third set of enemies took a solid 30 minutes, and lastly the fourth took about an hour or 15 minutes in specific. I finally powered through hot and cold and went towards the ghost ship. Now personally, I really like the ghost ship. The first set of enemies were super compact and close to the quest giver. I skipped the second because they were much further and not really worth it. But I grinded the first set of enemies from level 1250 to 1300 and it took about 30 minutes. Afterwards, I moved on to the inner part of the ship. The first set of enemies was pretty cool. 6 of them spawned in a super tiny room which made them super easy to farm. In the middle of grinding them, I realized it was time for the sword dealer to spawn, so I headed to the manager. When I talked to him, he said this, which indicated the dealer is spawning soon. I talked to him literally seconds afterwards and he said he spawned. So I don't even know the spawn points, so I had to pull up a video and start checking all the locations. I started with the Coliseum, but I was such an idiot. This is the sword dealer spawn point and this is what I checked. I don't know how or why, but I got it confused. So I checked all the other spots like normal and I was so confused when I realized he wasn't in any of them. Thank God I had the life route to quickly travel through these large distances. Luckily, I realized my dumb mistake and went back to the Coliseum and got him in time. He sold me the sword Wando, which I don't think is that good, but as a collector, it's still cool to have. Also, fun fact, if you get all 3 of his swords and get good mastery on them, you can get the triple katana, the weapon Zoro uses. Pretty cool. Anyways, I went back to the ship and finished up with a set of enemies. The last set of enemies in the ship took another 20 minutes to complete and I was off to another winter area. The winter area was pretty chill, no pun intended. The first set of enemies was alright since they spawned in a group of 5 and their ability wasn't that bad. Halfway through grinding, I remembered somebody commented on my last video that I should get Rengoku. You obtain Rengoku by killing the boss on this island and using the key he drops to open a secret chest. I killed the Ice Admiral, got the hidden key, and I got Rengoku. The sword definitely looks cool, but I still think my Bicento has better abilities for grinding due to the AoE, so I stuck to the Bicento. The second set of enemies in the winter area were slightly more annoying, but nothing too bad. The whole winter place took about an hour and 20 minutes to finish, and I was off to the final island, Onigashima. The final island wasn't anything crazy, but I was just so happy to almost be done with this. The first set of enemies had a kind of annoying ability, but if you kill them one by one, they don't have time to use it, so it's pretty cool. They took about 30 minutes to kill, and I went to the final enemies of the second sea. They were right. A good bit of them spawned and they were super close to the quest giver. But anyways, at 20 hours, 26 minutes, and 54 seconds, I hit level 1500. By the way, if you saw my last video, you remember I played Bloxfruits a good bit over a year ago. So I've never been to the third sea. I searched up what I had to do to enter it and I had to talk to a few NPCs. But then Bloxfruits surprised me out of nowhere. It played a whole last cinematic cutscene. It was pretty sick. I don't understand what's really happening. I think it's 2 of the devs fighting for some reason. But after the random 4K HD cutscene, I talked to an NPC and I entered the third sea at 20 hours, 34 minutes, and 17 seconds.